You are listening to an episode of MegAnne is Not a Parent, but today's episode is brought to you by Positive Parenting Class Pass. Positive Parenting Class Pass is my simple 6-class jumpstart to your journey of positive parenting. I don't know why I said jumpstart there. If you have been wanting to build confidence and wanting to go deeper, this is the perfect next step for you. And you can start practicing positive parenting today at bekindcoaching.com/classpass. In today's episode, we'll be chatting about the qualities and characteristics of an unsafe parent. This is episode 4 in our 8-episode stretch, going through those 4 qualities of secure attachment: security, safety, soothing, and seeing. So I invite you to be gentle with yourself in this podcast and in this awareness, and make sure that you're drinking water, going slow, and just giving yourself grace with the awarenesses that are brought up today. So I invite you now to get cozy, grab your notebook, and let's dig in. Strong relationships, which is the topic of this series in digging into attachment theory and kind of chunking this big theory down. Strong relationships is the dance between rupture and repair. And inside Positive Parenting Class Pass, inside of the recovery class, I talk about this in, I use the visual of a pothole, and think about a pothole in the city. I live in the downtown area, and I know often that potholes can take out a whole street. And then we just start to be so inventive in moving around the potholes or avoiding the potholes. And unfortunately, though we may avoid the initial impact of the pothole persists. And this is something that's true in relationships as well. There's going to be ruptures within our relationship, and some of those ruptures are benign. For instance, think about when you're talking to someone and they get a text message and they look down at their phone, right? They break their attention to you and they look down at their phone, they check the notification, and they come right back, right? That's a teeny tiny benign rupture. It's something that's just a blip. It's a break in the relationship, and then they come back and they may even say, oh, sorry, that's so-and-so wanting so-and-so. Or it might be like, oh, I actually need to go right now. I'm so sorry, I need to leave, right? There's some reconnection, bid for reconnection there. So those are benign ruptures. And some ruptures like that just get quickly patched over and healed quickly. We just continue on. But over time, if those benign ruptures go unnoticed or maybe even fester into bigger ruptures, they may be things that stay with us months, years, even decades. I know for some of the clients that I work with, they're holding on to ruptures that are decades old. Those potholes are decades old, and they've become very ingenuitive in how they maneuver around those ruptures. And building a strong relationship is doing the work to find those ruptures, to find those potholes, and to actually do the remedial work of healing and fixing them. And that work is work. It's messy. It's not sexy. It can be activating. It can be scary. However, it makes the journey so much smoother and freer. And so when we're thinking about what influences those ruptures in the lane that I'm helping parents become sensitive to those ruptures sooner. And the more sensitive and responsive that we can become to those ruptures, the quicker and more effective we can do that repair work. And those qualities of the ruptures of the dance of rupture and repair helps to influence that quality of attachment that you have with your children. So when we're talking about attachment theory, the quality of attachment bond affects the way that your child develops mentally, physically, intellectually, emotionally, and socially. How you fix those potholes is oftentimes directly related to how they interpret how they should fix those potholes. And the strength of that relationship, the strength of how well we model that, is a major predictor of how well your child will do both in life and school. So how you, as their most primary core foundational relationship, do this work is how they will take that toolbox, that foundational toolbox, into their future relationships. In this series and going through these qualities, We're rooting and grounding in the idea that the child is looking for a safe base. And your sense of bonding with the child in being safe. I often am working with parents who say, yeah, I'm safe. And they'll defend why they're safe. Or these are the things that I do to make my child feel safe. And those are all valid and amazing things that they do and have such beautiful intentions. However, in the work that I do, I shift it to picking up on the child's behavior from the child's point of view, because your sense of your bonding with the child, the things that you do, the things that you can defend, you can justify, you can quantify, is not the same as what your child is feeling from you. So being able to shift the POV, shift it into the child's POV is powerful. It's to say, hey, that I'm not a bad parent because I'm doing X, Y, and Z. It's I want to change X, Y, and Z because my child is feeling some sort of way about it. It's about saying, hey, it's my role. I'm the adult, I'm the caregiver, I'm the parent. It's my job, my role to do this work, to evolve and change and grow, to get into spaces that hold me accountable, that teach me skills, that invite me to practice those skills so that the impact on my child is different. That's something that we talk about often. I think in one of the earlier episodes in this season, we even talk about quite directly that aim for positive impact, not positive intention. Positive intention will invite in all sorts of defenses, right? I wasn't trying to do that, or I'm trying to stop yelling, or I'm doing my best. Like these are all defenses that we put up to defend our actions versus saying, hey, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't like doing this. I want to feel more confident in this area. And I want to gain skills and gain tools and muscles and accountability and practice so that I can have a different impact with my child. And those 4 qualities of attachment that we're digging into in this 8-episode series is shifting again from the adult's POV into the child's POV. And the qualities that we're assessing here are safety, being seen and understood, being soothed, and then having the outcome of security. And that security comes from that solid base together, feeling like a supported child, feeling as if your parents support you, feeling that your parents see you, that they understand you, that they're not triggered into defense from you, that they can hear criticisms, they can hear feedback, they can evolve and grow together with you, building that sense of support that the child's needs will be met. Another foundation that I help clients work through is becoming a balanced parent, assessing their toolboxes, assessing their strategies, their methods, their habits, their beliefs, to see, hey, are we feeling balanced? Are we leaning too kind or are we leaning too firm? And how can we get back in balance? Back in balance of being kind and firm, showing up with warmth, consideration, understanding, and consistency, structure, and follow through. Those together start to feel balanced. I no longer have to go into punishments of taking things away or bribes of giving or carroting. That's the image I love to use here. Carroting, like you would carrot a horse, like dangle it out in front of them. I don't have to go into that route because I know that I can validate, set the boundaries, empower choices, follow through with the consequences, and repair that rupture. And the outcome of that is building the foundations of a secure relationship. And that relationship is something that's going to carry you for the lifespan of you and your child. Attachment is defined as that relationship that gives you the inner sense of security, that inner sense of being, that inner sense of being seen, heard, understood, the inner sense of coping, the inner sense of calm, the inner sense of peace, harmony. And that inner sense of security comes from regulation. Inside of season 5, episode 9, we talk about what is regulation, co-regulation, dysregulation, autoregulation. And I like to describe regulation as that thermostat, managing that incoming stimulation with the appropriate energy release. inside that episode, we talked about regulation is that wave that goes up and down. So we go up into crisis or we go down into shutdown, and there's a gap. Sometimes we can feel that gap. Sometimes it's a pause. And that pause is that window of tolerance. How sensitive are we into being tripped into crisis or shutdown? Are there days, like for me, I know that I have days where just the littlest thing will trip me into crisis mode, right? There's certain times of the month, there's certain times of in my business or working with clients or in my own journey in life that my bandwidth is thinner and I get tripped into these big emotional waves within myself quicker. There's other times that I have more bandwidth, I have more resilience, I have more space for error. I like to think about the days that I'm running late for an appointment and then I'm stuck in traffic. And then I start to see that my gas light comes on in my car. And then I get a phone call and all these little things start to build up and my window of tolerance starts to get very narrow. And then other days where I'm well rested and I have space and I feel supported and I feel like my needs are all met, that those same things can happen. I could be in the exact same circumstance and be able to access peace and patience much quicker and easier. And it's not the thing, it's not the circumstances that I'm in, it's how I am and where my window of tolerance is and how well my own needs are being met. Because when we're not having those needs met, when we're in those moments of quick to anger or quick to shut down or quick to a big emotion, a big outburst, it tends to signal like, hey, there is a small window of tolerance. That dysregulated nervous system that has a difficult time moving from high and low states back to that state of calm and contentment in that window of tolerance. It's a struggle. And this is the world that I help, the space that I help parents in with their children. When we start to say things like, well, they get upset over the littlest, tiniest thing, ding, their window of tolerance is very narrow. They just can't be soothed, ding, their window of tolerance is narrow. And this is why I work with parents and I ask them, what is your experience like in that? How are you feeling in that? And oftentimes they mirror each other. Instead of being in the state of co-regulation, where the adult has a wide window of tolerance, has a lot of patience, has a lot of bandwidth, and when the child is dysregulated, having that narrow window of tolerance, and the child brings it to the adult, and they can process it together to both access wide window of tolerances and wide calm down spaces. Instead of having that, they tend to find themselves in a state of co-dysregulation, where either the child's overwhelm overwhelms the adult, or the adult's overwhelm overwhelms the child. And then we're met in this high level of stress and chaos. Co-dysregulation is something I see in many different spaces. It's something that is hiding in plain sight around all of us. And so that's why this work of getting into spaces to co-regulate and find your calm and find supports and meet your own needs is sometimes, I believe, more critical than the house you live in, though that is a need. But being able to calm and soothe yourself inside of that house is one of the greatest needs. Because as social mammals, we need the connection to another to help soothe our nervous system. Your child is dependent on you to soothe your nervous system so that you can help them do this work for themselves. And I know for me, that's something that I've had to learn as an adult. I learned that through working with children. In my 14 years as an early childhood educator, I learned that through working with other adults. Those tools and skills were not passed down to me. I did not have those in my toolbox. I had to learn them, and I had to become committed to learning them and committed to practicing them. Now I'm 20 years on my journey, and I'm feeling quite confident in that practice. The other day, I actually was talking to Jason, my husband, who is a elementary PE teacher, and he said, I wish that we could switch roles. I wish that I could do your half marathon training for you, and that you could go to school and teach the kids for me. And what that tells me is that he feels comfortable running where I do not. It pings me into stress very quickly. And for me, you could put me in a room with anyone and I'm able to co-regulate myself and them. I know the steps. I have confidence in the steps. I know how to execute in those steps because I've practiced it. From that, I now help parents do this work in their life, in their families, build the confidence, learn the skills, build the habits, strategies, methods, and beliefs so that they can start doing this work for their children, so that their children can have these tools for themselves. Because in childhood, we start to create this working model of how to soothe our nervous system. And we're geniuses at it. We're so amazing at doing that. And part of the way that we start to do this work, to start to soothe our nervous system, is rooted and grounded in our qualities and values of trust. Can we trust ourselves and others? Can we trust our own needs and communicate those needs? And then can we trust that our close-knit community, our caregivers that are around us, will fill those needs? And we start to think about this in the quality of trust. So trust and then not trust. So to have trust in self and trust in others, that's a secure relationship. To not trust yourself, but to trust others, always seeking outside influences and outside answers. Tell me what to do, I'll do it. That's not secure, anxious style. To trust yourself, to deeply know that you have needs and that you have them, but to not trust that others will fill them or will understand them or value them, that's qualified as not secure, avoidant. And then to not trust self and to not trust others, that's quantified as a not secure, disorganized, or ambivalent. So in this series, in this podcast series, we're going through those qualities, the qualities of parents' actions and the values of parenting that are seen to produce trust, being secure, being safe, being soothing, being seen, and then the qualities and values and methods in parenting that creates not trust. So the insecure parent, the unsafe parent, the unsoothing parent, and the unseeing parent. And in this episode, we're digging through the unsafe parent. And in this, we're getting super focused and what it means to be safe or not safe. So safety in this quality, to be safe, means to be free from risk or harm. And so again, I'm thinking about this as the parent as a trampoline for the child to jump and bounce from. And the parent can start asking, does the child have a sense of safety to land and launch? Can they bring me their stresses? Can I co-regulate through their stresses with them? And then can I launch them out? Am I a safe place to land? Do they have to censor things with me? Do they have to tiptoe around me? Do they have to lie around me? Do they have to stand up and defend themselves around me? Do they have to change or withhold sharing their true selves with me? That gives clue, like maybe they don't have a sense of safety. It doesn't mean that I'm not being safe. It means that we haven't established a sense of safety so that they can be transparent and open. And the child in this lane is asking, is the parent a safe base to land and launch from? Is the caregiver predictable? Meaning I know that every time this happens, I'm going to get this response. Every time I have this come with this need, I'm going to have this response. That creates a sense of predictability. The other question is the caregiver consistent? So not only am I predictable, but am I consistent? Meaning showing up in the same place over a stretch of time? Or am I constantly moving, constantly evolving, constantly shifting things? Now, I want to add here that when we're learning new things, it's natural to be shifting a lot at first, to have a sense of inconsistency because we are working to establish consistency. I see this inside of routines, morning routines, bedtime routines, eating routines, activity routines, homework routines. When we're looking at establishing the routine, at first it can feel very inconsistent because it's hard. I see this right now in myself in my half marathon training. I am building consistency and it's hard. There's a lot of resistance to not do it, especially if I cannot do it perfectly. I'm like, well, I shouldn't even try then. So I want to say here that part of being consistent is valuing and giving ourselves permission to be inconsistent at first so that we can establish that consistency. And then a final quality or question here that we've been digging into is, how does the caregiver recover? So when a mistake happens, when there is that rupture in that relationship, how does the caregiver recover through that? Do they punish? Do they shame? Do they blame? Or do they cold shoulder, go absent, or retreat? And the way that the parent recovers through that, the way that the parent takes ownership, accountability, shows up, and does that repair work, starts to again build that sense of safety or not safety, trust or not trust. So I want you to think about a time, maybe, let's say within the past week, that a mistake happened, something didn't go to plan. And I want you to evaluate, how safe did you feel in that moment? How safe did you feel bringing it to someone? How safe did you feel asking for help? How safe was that experience for you? Brain break moment. All right, I know that I can go deep way fast. So let's just take a pause here to take a deep breath in and let it out. And listen while I let you know that this episode is brought to you by me, MegAnne, and my Positive Parenting Class Pass. Positive Parenting Class Pass are 6 simple positive parenting classes to kickstart your positive parenting journey. Those classes include Positive Parenting 101, which is a class that is just designed to give you the first steps in what positive parenting is and what it is not. Second class is Emotional Validation. In this class, we dig into how can we show up to have your child feel seen and heard in their lived experience. The third class is Setting Boundaries, all about communicating, enforcing, and allowing testing of your secure and consistent and firm boundaries. The fourth class is a class called Ending Entitlement. Inside of this class, we dig into how we are showing up using tools of entitlement and how we can start to release those tools and begin practicing tools of empowerment and choice. And we know that what we put down, they're going to pick up. The fifth class is a class all about natural consequences. This is a class that gets very clear, and you'll walk away knowing what an imposed consequence is, what a logical consequence is, and most importantly, how to begin utilizing natural consequences so your children begin learning from their lived experience. And the final class is a class all about apologizing. I like to say that connection is the most skipped over step and recovery is the least utilized step. So in that step, you'll start to learn how to show up and use impactful and effective apologies so that your child knows that you see them and hear them and care about them. If you are looking to begin your journey today, then I highly encourage you go to bekindcoaching.com/classpass and dig into the classes starting today. As my free gift, you will receive Raising Respectful Kids, which is my 3-part video series all about how to stop focusing on adding on more decorations to your child and to you and to your relationship, and instead starting to reinforce and build a solid and secure foundation together. I can't wait to hear all of your amazing wins from the steps that you take inside of Positive Parenting Class Pass. All right, ready to get back to our episode? Before we get back, let's take one more deep breath together. And take a deep breath in and let it out.
and let's go.
In season 1, episode 3, I introduced a concept called safe failures. Safe failures are moments of intentionally failing so that even just the process of failing begins to feel safe, that we start to embody what it's like to make mistakes and learn from them. Because if we're going to punish ourselves through those mistakes, then mistakes become unsafe because we're using punishment on ourselves. And my whole platform is about removing punishment from the parent-child relationship, which means removing self-punishment as well. In those qualities of making a mistake and working to feel safe, if I were to say, what helps you feel safe in those moments? I want you to know that all of the answers that would be given would be unique to the individual, because safety is an individual sense, which means for your child, it's an individual sense. If you have more than one child, it's an individual sense. So now we're adding on layers, we're adding on complexities, which gives the parent more opportunities to lean into diversifying their tools, because what works with one sibling might not work with the other sibling. What works with one person might not work with the other person. It's the invitation to get curious and start to build that attachment with every single one of your children. I know in my family, I'm number 4 of 5, I can only share what feels safe to me. I don't know what feels safe truly to my other siblings. I know what would feel safe to me. I know the ruptures that I have gone to repair in myself and with others and with my own parents. I know what that work is like for me, and I don't know what it's like for them. They know. And entering spaces for them to identify those potholes in themselves, or those potholes in their relationships, or those potholes that they have been avoiding. That's individual work. And I say this now because we're about to get into qualities of not trust, qualities of unsafe. And this is the work that we cannot outsource to anyone else. I'll say that again. This is work that we cannot outsource to anyone else. Building a relationship between you and your child is between you and your child. And I say this because sometimes parents come to me and say, oh, you're going to help me, or you've helped me so much. And I will never take credit for those wins. I hold space. I build relationship between me and you, but I am not the one doing the work for you in your other relationships. That's all you. And I want to celebrate that. You doing that work to find those spaces and opportunities and build courage and build confidence, those are your wins. And I just love to celebrate them with you. My role is to build relationship with you so that then you can go and build relationship with your children and family, so that you can start to create that sense of safety in your home. That's what's most important to me. How can I create a sense of safety in the work that I do, in the spaces that I hold, so that you know now how to establish that sense and you can take that into your homes? I now know clearly, you can say to yourself, I know now clearly what it feels like to be safe in mistakes, what that experience is like, and now I can share that with my children. It's grounded and rooted in what's called polyvagal theory. This is a theory talking through how our nervous system kicks on, how our nervous system responds to threats and safety in our environment. The observable behaviors of when someone is in a sense of safety is that they're calm, they're responsive, they're playful, they're open, they're flexible, they can talk, they make sense. When they're in a state of threat, those stress responses are kicked on: fight, flight, freeze, fawn, and shut down. Just this week, I was tagged in a local Facebook community post talking through a child being kicked out of their preschool. And I got curious. I'm like, something's going on there. There's something in the environment that is a threat. Our behavior is communication. I actually shared that podcast episode with them, that behavior is communication. Let's start to get curious. Is it a developmental skill that's missing? Is there a developmental need that we need to assess? Is there missing skills, social skills, peer skills, um, social skills that we can start to work on development and develop, not development, develop. And then the third is that, is it a stress state? Is there something that is creating stress? This is why I aim again to remove punishments, because punishments immediately kick us into a threat response. Punishments by nature are pain, and pain kicks into threat. We go into survival. We go into these spaces that we start to get activated into our lower brains, meaning we get triggered into the, am I safe? If our safety is compromised, we're going to start acting from that place. Our behavior is going to illuminate where we are. Or are we shifting up into being in our calm, responsive, open state? We talk about those 3 brain states inside of season 5, episode 10, where I talk about Dan Siegel's hand model of the brain. And that's where this kicks on, that I'm not saying that we're going to stop yelling because it's a vanity, right? Good parents don't yell. No. I say we're not going to yell because when we yell, we inadvertently kick our kids into a stress response. And then we both are activated into a stress response, and we're entering into that code dysregulation. When I say help parents stop yelling, it's not for vanity. It's not for good parent stickers. It's gold stars. It's saying, hey, it's just purely ineffective. It's not doing what you think it's doing. And then once we know what it's doing, then we are like, of course, like we want to learn how to do it differently. That's the work that I do. Those are the classes I teach. That's the space I hold. That's the work that I do with parents, is to help them feel better, so that now yelling is no longer an effective tool. And part of that is becoming aware of when we've been using it and when we have had this outcome of not being safe. Again, not to punish ourselves, but to invite us in, to call us in. So just like last episode where we went through the qualities of being a safe parent, physically safe, emotional safe, socially safe, we're going to look at these same qualities and flip them. How do we show up that are ways that create the unsafe outcome? So when we're talking about being an unsafe parent in a physical sense, we can look at the physical sense in the lane of the needs and the environment. So when we're talking about here, when we're going one step deeper, we're thinking about things like, well, I'm thinking about things like how prevalent are threats and bribes. As soon as we threaten something, like threaten to take away screen time, threaten to leave the park, threaten to not go somewhere, threaten that a birthday party is going to be taken away, threaten that if you're Christian, you celebrate Christmas, the threat that Santa's not going to come. These are all threats that activate that stress response. When we bribe, or we try to get and manipulate behavior through bribes or treats, or thinking like, well, if you just do this, then you'll get this, where we're bribing them into compliance. Again, it's a fear-based response. What is the fear? The fear is missing out. The fear is having something taken away. The fear is not being able to receive something. That creates a sense of unsafe. Like, whoa, I didn't know that this could be taken away. I don't want this to be taken away. As soon as this starts to happen, what I've noticed is that a child will go into pleading. They're going to say things like, no, not right now. I promise I'll do it better next time. I promise that I'll get on my shoes. Right. And it tricks us. It's like, oh, they're listening to us now. No, they're listening because they're scared. They're listening because they're feeling unsafe. When we're at the park and we're like, okay, it's time to go. I guess you just live here now. I'm gonna leave without you. That's fear. We're threatening. Whoa, I could be left here. It's creating a sense of unsafety. That's when the child comes running up to the parent, crying and grabbing. They're scared. And again, it's like, well, that works because it got you to leave the park. From our adult POV, we're like, okay, well, this worked. But when we go a little bit deeper, it doesn't work how you think it's working. Another trait of physical unsafety is criticism and shame. Those spaces where we're offering, criticizing what they're wearing, criticizing what they're eating, criticizing what they're doing, who they're playing with, what brings them joy. When we're criticizing those, or when we're judging those, or when we're labeling them, then it's creating that sense of shame. Like, I'm not good enough. If I want my hair cut in a certain way, and my parent offers a criticism to it, like, oh, well, if you cut your hair short, then you're going to look like a boy. Or if you leave your hair long, then you're going to look like a girl. When I offer that as the caregiver, I'm now inviting in a sense of unsafety. Like, oh, wait, they don't accept me. Like, oh, okay, well, if I do this, then they're going to not accept me. Like, I'm not good enough. I'm not enough. Now I'm going to hide. I'm going to mask. I'm going to make myself smaller so that I can fit in, because I value safety over everything. That's when I start to learn, like, hey, okay, don't share this with this person because they're going to say this, and it's going to shift me into a state of not feeling safe. And another aspect of this is punishments. Again, I addressed punishments a little while ago, that punishments inflict pain. Pain kicks on that thermostat into a stress response. I'm now in protection mode. Punishments are timeout. Punishments are corporal punishments. Punishments are yelling, taking something away, restrictions. Punishments are something that activates that stress response. And then we're going to get those outcomes. We're going to get rebellion. We're going to get revenge. We're going to get retreat. We're going to get resistance and resentments. All of those are clues to say, ooh, this person felt punished. I remember very clearly a parent I worked with last year, and she came to me and said, well, I don't punish my child. And when we dug deeper, we started to assess these areas. We started to assess, how we show up when they do something you don't like, or how we show up in anger, or how we show up in moments of stress and struggle. And we started to say, like, oh, the parent would never have qualified what they were doing as punishments, but the child was displaying the behaviors to say, hey, it was communicated as such. They were feeling punished. The parent didn't validate that they were or think that they were punishing. However, that was the child's experience. And when we retweaked that, when we readjusted that, then those big behaviors went away because the child was no longer feeling punished. They were starting to feel and understand their role in the situation. They were able to be brought into taking accountability safely. They were able to reestablish a sense of safety. So I want you to think about how you show up in your own stressful moments, in those moments of dysregulation for you. And are you threatening, withholding, or taking away any of those needs? The needs of shelter, the needs of sleep, the needs of air. Are we weaponizing these things? Protection, play, food, water, clothing. Are these things that now we've leveraged them? Feels like we're pulling levers. Okay, well, if I say this, then they're going to do that. If I take away this, then they're going to do that. I think something that's very common is around sleep. I was witness to a 3-year-old going down for a nap, and the parent, who was getting very activated and triggered in this space, they were going to take away the lovey. They were going to go take away the nightlight. They were going to go take away their stuffed animals. They were going to go take away books. And they got to a point where they're like, there's nothing else to take away in the room. And to me, from the child's POV, they've now put this 3-year-old in a state of so much defense that the child is like, take it all away. I'm still not going to go to sleep because now I'm in defense mode. And when we take an opposite counterintuitive route to connect, to hold boundaries, to work on establishing a more consistent, secure routine, then those defenses have no place. We can start to lay down the defenses. We can actually release ourselves into a state of rest and thus sleep. The second quality of being an unsafe parent is we can look through and look into being emotionally unsafe. So think about this in the lane of, again, affection and importance. So what do we do here? Well, when we are emotionally volatile, that makes us an unsafe person of affection. When we're using our hands to spank, when we're using our hands to grab or to pinch. I've had a parent, this was years ago, say, well, I just give them a little pinch behind the ear. Then they know that I mean it. And I'm like, wow, yeah, I can see how that makes them get into shape. However, what that's doing is that's activating their defenses. We're now becoming not only physically volatile, now we're entering into the space of emotionally volatile, where now there's no space for upset. There's no space for questioning. There's no space for validation. We actually can't become an invalidating caregiver, saying things like, it's not that big of a deal. Everything's fine. People have it worse than us. It's not that big of a issue. Why are you so sensitive? I didn't mean it like that. We start to get into these spaces of invalidation. And when we become emotionally volatile and then pair that with invalidation, then it creates an unsafe caregiver. I now have a caregiver that cannot hold my big feelings or cannot hold my upsets. So then I'll just learn to hold them on to myself or find other spaces that will hold them. So does the child believe themselves in those moments to be the source of stress? And think about things like in saying things like, you make me so mad. We talk about this inside of the Understanding Us series, where those you are statements become I am statements. You make me so mad is I make people mad. You are a mistake turns into I am a mistake. You are so sensitive turns into I am so sensitive. I can't stand you turns into people can't stand me. That's because as a child, we're immature. As a child, we're developing those models. As a child, we are believing our caregivers. The other space is becoming invalidating, saying things like, you're fine, it's not a big deal, there's nothing to be mad about. Those moments are leaving a child alone in their big emotional experience. In that moment, now it's like, okay, well, I don't feel safe to express it. I don't feel safe to experience it. Those become not safe spaces. Anger, sadness, disappointment. Oof, nope, I will stay far away from them. They are unsafe spaces to go into. This is why we talked about how that there are no bad emotions. We have to destigmatize them and de-villainize them because they have as much purpose as joy and happiness. They're giving us signals and information. And when we can learn how to understand that information, then we can start to make, again, more informed, more empowered decisions and choices and take more higher quality actions. And the final quality of an unsafe parent is social, that sense of belonging and that sense of community. So we're thinking about, are we an unsafe parent? Are there judgments and labels placed on what your child likes and what your child dislikes? A lot of spaces, especially in sibling work, where there's unintentional labels placed, we could say things like, well, your sister's the runner. You like to run, your sister's the runner. Or your sister's just the better reader, right? We're unintentionally labeling and unintentionally saying, this is the box I have placed you in. And that can be frustrating for a child. It can be frustrating to be like, well, I can't ask for this because they're that. You know, I can't ask for running shoes because I'm not the runner in the family. My sister's the runner in the family. Or I can't want to do this because, you know, I don't hold that label. This other person holds the label. So when we're assessing and becoming aware of our judgments and our labels, we can start to see how they influence us. Even in the positive, when we say things like, oh, you're just such a good listener, right? I wish your brother would listen to me more, just like you. We're unintentionally adding that judgment and label. Another space of this is the should haves, would haves, could haves. When we start to place that onto the child, well, you should have just done, fill in the blank. Well, you should have just done this, or if you could have just done that. We're starting to put our own onto the child. It starts to ping up, ooh, unsafe. I'm now feeling like if I don't conform, if I don't comply, then my role in the family is being threatened. I'm going to be edged out. And the other space of being an unsafe parent is being misattuned. And we're thinking about being misattuned. Attunement, again, is being able to convey that you see, hear, understand, that you understand someone else's mental experience. And to be misattuned is the experience of sharing something that you're going through with another person and having their response just be like almost like nails on the chalkboard. So this is moments of sharing, I had a really hard day today, and someone responding with, don't worry, you'll get them next time. And you're like, oh, okay, if it was only that easy. A common thing I see, especially on social media, is parents don't feel so overwhelmed, as if it was that easy, right? If it was just like a flip of a switch. Oh, okay, I don't feel overwhelmed anymore. That state of misattunement and being able to, or the value and quality of not being connected to, leaves you misattuned, leaves you out, leaves you feeling alone. And loneliness pings up, guess what? Feelings of unsafety. So when we're showing up in ways that threaten that sense of belongings and threaten that sense of community, that is, again, valuing like, hey, distrust, rupture, and building that sense of loneliness. It's interesting because this pings up when I invite parents to take the next step into classes or parenting classes, or in the parenting communities, or even just coming and joining on the podcast and staying for the Q&A and being open to the Q&A. It pings up a lot of fear, and it's fear of community. And that tells me that maybe somewhere along the line, they were in a sense of community. They were in building a community, and that community was threatened. I recently just shared this within my own coach. I said, look, I've built this huge community. And if they hear Spicy MegAnne, or if they learn of Spicy MegAnne, they may all just leave. And that's scary. That's scary to think about that. It's scary to think about, if I am my true self, which I work very hard to do, but if I were to just speak what I see and speak what I want, that sense of community is jeopardized. And that's scary. It's scary to think about, hey, this place that I'm investing in, I want it to see me, hear me, and accept me for being me. And I know that that's a paper tiger. I know that that's not a real tiger. However, that's what I'm here to build, is a safe community that accepts everyone as they are, that confronts biases, that confronts judgments, that invites in those challenges, ruptures, and repairs. And this is something that we work through inside of Clear and Kind Parents. There have been many times where there is that sense of tension, or that sense of disagreement, and we come in and we work towards finding that sense of community, finding that sense of shared space, finding that sense of equanimity together, so that we can establish that sense of safety within the community. So it's the very thing I'm scared of, is the very thing that I have the exact toolbox and the exact criteria to help build and work through. But I get it. For many, community has been weaponized. School was weaponized. Being vulnerable has been weaponized. And so to step into spaces where you're feeling open and vulnerable, and you can ask questions and dig deeper, that often is a new experience. And I want if you're listening to this now, to know that I understand that and I know it and I value it. And I don't take lightly the people who choose to continue on and step into spaces, knowing that they're going to get spicy, MegAnne, and knowing that the work I do is activating, and it is a lot, and it is confronting. And we do that with purpose of going through it. So yeah, big episode this time. I'm going to end again on that my classes and courses help parents become secure caregivers. And we do that by entering into these spaces of security and safety within my classes and within my group coaching programs and within any space I hold. That's what I'm working towards establishing: a sense of security, a sense of consistency, a sense of vulnerability, a sense of space that we can start to practice these tools together, so that we can now take these tools inside of our homes and families and start to execute on those tools as well. So in closing, I want you to consider the questions that I've been asking at the end of every episode: is how predictable are your responses? When you think about the big moments, when you're thinking about the stressful moments, how predictable are those responses? And then how secure, how confident do you feel in your parenting? How prepared do you feel for the tantrums at Target? How prepared do you feel for the moments of disappointment at the park? How prepared do you feel in starting a new routine or executing on a new transition? What are your levels of support? And do you feel supported in those moments?